Started from the basics, I was hoping for a raise. Little crave, trying to understand my name.
So yeah, what's up guys? It's the kind of story here again, and today we're going to be talking about pivot tables. So basically, what are pivot tables? So pivot tables are tables that used to summarize a main table that you have. So a table consisting of data and data points. So your pivot table will help you summarize those tables and also perform certain calculations on those tables, such as sum, such as difference, and such as percentages as well.
This is nothing but a mad joke. It can't be possible.
And it helps further perform analysis on your table and also group certain data points into one point on your table. So let's say for instance you have a table that consists of years and months, and then all those months have values. So basically a table that has dates and then values. Let's say the values will be sales. So your data table can actually summarize those months into years or those dates into years, and then give you the total amount of money that you made for that year. And then also further on perform things like finding the percentage, and then you can now then use that to perform further analysis and also to plot graphs or create pie charts, which is why you need to understand and you need to know pivot tables before you can now then start creating graphs or pie charts in your Excel.
Bombastic side eye, criminal of.
So for this tutorial, we're going to have, or I'm going to be using a table that consists of dates and then also consists of different values for those dates. So it's going to be sales. So it's going to be a simple table made up of two columns. You're going to have dates and then you're going to have sales for those particular dates. And then you'll now be able to summarize them, perform different sort of operations on those records. And then later on in another video, we'll now see how we can use those data to plot graphs. So one of the most common type of graph that you'll be able to plot, and that will make it more understandable, with dates will be, plotting line graphs. But then also you can also create your bar charts, even your pie charts as well. So when you group all of them into years, then you can now create a pie chart or a bar graph. But for continuous data, especially the data that involves dates, your line graphs will be more preferable to use. Yeah, so basically this is the table we're going to be working with. So from this table you can see we have sales ID. So basically it's a sales spreadsheet. We have the sales ID, store ID, product ID, date, unit price, quantity. So it looks quite complicated, but I'll just break it down. So basically you have the sales ID. So each store, which is the store ID here, so each store have their own unique sales ID for a particular product. So when you are seeing the same amount and the same store ID multiple times, it's for a different store. So you can see this store ID, which is 10,000, is for this store, this 10,000 for this store. So basically this table consists of sales from different stores in one spreadsheet. And then we have the product ID. So product ID is also unique as well for different products. But I also believe that each store can have the same product ID. So a unique store can have the same product ID as another store. Let's say store A can have, let's say they sell let's say chocolates, maybe a particular brand of chocolates that has a store ID 789. And then store B will also have the same type of chocolates, and then it will have the same store and product ID of 789. So let's just confirm that. So we're going to do certain things we've learned in the past as well, like using filters, using sorts, to better understand the table, because that's the very first thing that you ought to do. Understand the table, understand what you're trying to achieve. So when you understand that, then you can now go ahead to achieve it. If not, it will look very confusing. You don't have to explain everything in your pivot table on your graph. You just have to pick a unique subject that you're working with, and then get insight into that. So let me confirm if store IDs are unique. So I'm interested in 789. See if there's another product in a different store that has 789. Okay, 789. Okay. So yeah, so you see there multiple 789s, product ID of 789, and then you can see that this store ending with 55 has 789, this store ending with 54 has 789, and also this store again with the same store as this also has 789. So there are multiple products of that product, and also is also a different year. So it could be chocolate of a particular brand being sold in 2019 and then it was sold in 2020. So yeah, so basically that is that. So I think you understand that. So these are unique, but not unique to a particular store or to a particular date, but they are unique products, product IDs. And then we have the date, obviously, and then unit price and quantity. I'm not going to be bothered with the quantity. So basically the quantity is just okay how many of that product was sold in that particular date, or it could also mean how many of that product they have in stock. So we don't really have full explanation of what quantity is. I'm not really interested in quantity, so this is what I'm really interested in. I'm interested in the store ID, so that's what I'm going to use for my pivot table, and then further on in the next video I will now use that to create my the graphs that I will be working with. So yeah, so we have the store ID, we have product ID. I'm interested in well, product ID not so much, because I'm not interested in product ID, so I'm going to eliminate that. So I'm interested more with the store ID, and then also with the date. Basically, like, it's the insight I'm trying to get, the date, and then also with the unit price. So what I'm going to achieve with my pivot table is I'm going to check to see, okay, how many of a particular product was sold, although I'm not going to be using the product ID, but how many of a particular product was sold on a particular date, in a particular store. So I want to get the store, I want to see how much they made in that particular in a particular date, and then let's say on the 1st of May 2020, how much was made. That's the unit price of everything that was made, how much was made for that period of time, and so that's what we're going to use our pivot table to achieve. So basically, to create pivot table, select your main spreadsheet, click on insert, and then here you see pivot table, and then click on it. Click on pivot table, it asks you for the source, where you're going to create that table from, and then we already have the source here, which is this one. So sometimes it could be an external source. So if you click on external source, you connect it, you choose a connection, connect to the external source. It could be an external database somewhere else, and then it's able to feed into your Excel. And then here we just show you, okay, where do you want to create your pivot table? You want it to be in the same worksheet, which is this one, so you just need it somewhere here, or do you want it in a new worksheet? So it will create a new worksheet for you. So I'll just click on new worksheet, and then I'll click on OK. And there we go. So I started creating our pivot table. So I'm just going to rename this and say pivot sales. And then start. So we have all the field names are here, and like I said, I'm interested in sales ID, I'm interested in the unit price, I'm interested in the dates. Now you notice we have different fields here that you can actually put your field names into them. So it all depends on what you're trying to achieve again. So now basically filter is just as the name implies. You're going to use that to filter down. When you're doing your analysis, to filter down to see, okay, what exactly is this thing saying. So basically filter is going to perform filtering. You have a group of similar items, but you want to narrow it down to maybe a particular item, maybe based on the date or whatever. You use the filter. You have columns, which basically is just going to create columns for you. You have rows, which will now be the actual rows that will be created, like the values and everything. And then you have the values, which is then what you're trying to achieve. So if it's you're trying to sum, if you're trying to count, if you're trying to find the difference, if you're trying to find percentage, whatever, that will be the value. So the value is actually what summarizes everything. And yeah, so basically, let me drag the store ID to columns. So drag the store ID to columns, and then it just shows, okay, column labels. So it shows, okay, this is the first store ID, which is 10,002. Then we have the store ID. We have this one. We have this one. But it looks really confusing if you make this as columns. If it was a smaller table, with smaller records, then this would have made sense. But then you can see it's just like a lot of columns for each store ID. But if you're trying to achieve, maybe you want to get how much a particular store made, you will be able to use this. So it just easily shows, okay, this is the store, and I say, okay, unit price, and I take it to rows, or rather I'll take it to values. I'll take it to values, and then you can now see the count for all the sales that was made. But I mean when I'm dealing with prices, I don't want to see count. I'm not concerned about count. So what I'll do is I'm more concerned about sum, and then I click on sum, and then you can see that, okay, for this store, the total amount that was made, for everything in that table, in that spreadsheet, this is the total amount. So when you sum every single thing that this store that pertains to this store, you're gonna get this 12,914.8075, and likewise for the rest as well. So, but then it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if you do this, okay, fine, so what are you actually saying? And that's why using pivot tables, you have to really understand what you want to achieve, because then you can just have a jamboree of nonsense, there just being displayed, and nobody will understand what you're doing. So yeah, so basically you have this. So what is it saying? It really doesn't explain much. But then if I add the date, to it, and I say, okay, let's make dates as rows, and then add the dates. So it now makes a little bit more sense. Now I can see that for 2017, this was what was made. For 2018, this was the total sales made. So if I'm trying to get total sales for a particular store, I would use this method, but that is not my focus. So I can say, okay, for 2017, this was made. If I extend it, if I open it, I can see for quarter. So first quarter, this was made. Second quarter was made. Third quarter. This is the power of pivot tables. Because imagine you doing this manually, it's going to take a lot of time. But with pivot tables, I can already see that for the first quarter, this is what was made. Without anybody even calculating anything, I can easily just get information. Second quarter, this was made. Third quarter, this was made. Fourth quarter, this was made. And then I can narrow it down to months. So I'll say for January 2027, this was the total amount made. February, total amount made. March, total amount made. But then it's not unique to a product ID. So I don't know, okay, which product is selling the most. But this is just showing that which month performed better, or which quarter performed better, or which year did they perform better. So I can say, okay, for the first quarter, obviously the month of March performed better. And then I'll say for 2017, the best quarter in 2017 is quarter 4. And there might be a reason. I mean, these guys, we don't know what they sell. Maybe, for instance, they sell things that would be more attractive during the festive period, which is Christmas. And maybe that's why they made more sales in quarter 4, because that'll be Christmas period. And then you can check for other stores as well to find similarities, and you can actually see that for other stores, it's also similar as well. They're making more sales, although there's some disparity in it. But like for this store, they made more sales in that quarter 4, but for this one, not more sales. Made more sales in quarter 2. So then you can further understand, okay, the stores you're dealing with, and then you have more probing questions to ask. If you don't have certain information about those stores. But that is, like I said, that is not our major goal. But basically it's confusing. So we don't know which products are actually doing, the most sales, and everything. So if I want to now get the product that is actually performing, very well, for a particular store, I would then take this guy to filter. I say, okay, for a particular store, I want to know which product is doing the best. Take that guy to filter, come here. Like I said, this is actually not the main goal, but I'm just using this as a random example. And then I just made a mistake. Then I drag these two columns. So we have product ID. So now that's product ID. So this is product ID. We have 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. No. So we can now see that for now we have to now filter, because now the store ID is now in filters. Now this is showing all. It's quite confusing because it makes no sense if we can't get any insight from all, because that's every single store that is actually summarizing and calculating here. So for every single store, although you can actually still use this to get insights, you can say, okay, for every single store, product 2 in 2017 is doing better so far, at least from what I can see. Okay, we also have product 15, you know, and then this is going to be a lot of products here, a lot of products. So, like I said again, it's just going to be a jamboree of nonsense. It's really not going to make sense. But yeah, but this is just an example of how you can still get like insights and build upon maybe like the product ID. And then also you can actually take the product ID to the label, to the raw label, and then you can use that to get insights. Then you can now use your data as the filter based on data. So that's another thing as well. But then you now be focusing just on the products and not on the stores. But yeah, but I can now say, okay, I want to check for this particular store. And yeah, so for this particular store, you can see that they don't sell product 2, which is very good. So that's a good insight. They don't sell product 10, they don't sell product 28. So yeah, that is that. And but you can see that okay, for 2017 for product 1 they made this amount. That's not a lot. So they didn't sell much. If you narrow it down, so it was only quarter 1 they made sales, and they only made sales in March for that product. So that's another way of getting inside. But then, like I said, because there's a lot of products, it's just confusing. So you can't really work with this kind of way of performing this. But then, like I said, if you want to focus on the products, then you can focus on the products and then leave the store. But because store and products are like, they are two deterministic data points in this that you can actually use to get insights, you'll be able to actually use both of them. So if I use store ID and I put product somewhere, cannot be confused. Although I can actually put product under filter as well, and then I can now say, okay, for product 1, what did he make? Then I can go and say product 2. But then again, it's not giving me like a holistic view of what I would like to see. But like I said, that's not what I'm telling it. So now I'm going to go to the main thing we're telling it here. So which is getting the sales per store ID for a particular date. So and in order to do that, we already have the store ID in the right place. So I'll take product ID away because I'm not bothered about product ID. So we have the store ID, we have the sum of unit price, and then we have the dates. But then I do not want to summarize the dates. Okay, fine. I can understand for this store, which is 102. We have the sum of unit price is 3,208 for 2017, which is good. Which I can actually plot a graph from this and say, okay, for 2017, this was made. It could be a line graph or it could be a bar chart. More preferably a bar chart. So 2018, this was made. 2019, this was made. 2020, this was made for this particular store. Good and fine. I can also select all. See, for everything. This is for 2017, blah, blah, blah. But then there's not much insight. So I'm focusing on one store, which will be this store. So fine. But then I do not want to sum up all these values. I want to create a line chart or a line graph which will show continuous data. So I'm going to remove all these guys away from here. I'm going to remove this one, this, and this. And then yeah, so then we now have continuous data. So I was saying for the 1st of January 2027, the unit price of goods sold in that day was 7 for this particular store. And then for the second, we still have the price. And then now you can now plot a continuous graph for all these records, 2017 all the way down. So this is basically just for 2017. And then if you go all the way down, we also get for we get 2018. So then you can put the graph, that be continuous, it can be a line graph, and then basically you've achieved that goal, and also achieve that insight that you're trying to get, which is you're trying to see sales per day, for a particular store. And also mind you as well, graphs cannot be so complicated. So that's why pivot tables cannot be so complicated. So you cannot have store ID, and they also now have product ID. Remember when you're drawing a graph, and that is why pivot tables is specifically for not just obviously it's for summarizing your table, for getting insights and everything, but then also it's also designed to work with how your graphs work. So when you have your graph, you're plotting against two things. So either you're plotting against, you have the y column and the x column. So it has to be two things. You can't plot against multiple things. I can't plot against four things, or whatnot. It has to be two things. So in your, let's say in your y column, not your y, in your x column or your x side of the graph, you're going to have the dates, and then in your y side of the y axis of the graph, you're going to have your sales or your prices, or basically sales, and then you'll be able to now get insights for that particular store. You cannot have another, maybe like you could have like maybe a Z column or a Z axis where you're gonna have products, things like that, because you just be confusing. But then you can filter based on stores. If you'd want to maybe get insights based on store ID, then your store ID can now go to the X column, and then the price will now be on the Y column, which I can quickly just show that. So basically, I will just take out, so if I want to get the unit price per store ID, so I'll take out the dates. So I'll take out the dates, take it up, and then it's store ID here. And because I've selected it, so I'll select for all, and there we have it. And so then you can now plot your store ID and say, okay, which store made the most money, and then you can now say for a particular year, then your date will now be the filter. So now say, okay, for 2017. Let me see now to get that. Let me summarize this in years. Okay, but I don't need it here. I don't need it here. Yeah, I need it. So you can now say, okay, for years. So you can say for, okay, let me take this one out. Take this one out. So that's just for years. So we would say for the year, let's say 2017, which store made the most money. You can now then get insights based on the charts that we play. So maybe it's going to be a line chart or a bar graph. A bar graph will actually work best with this. So you say, okay, for the year 2017, which store made more money? Which one had the most sales? Then you'll be able to get that. For the year 2018, which store made the most sales? You'll be able to get that. So that's just basically what your pivot table is doing. And then I hope I'll be able to touch on different fields, which is the filter, column, rules, values. So basically your filter basically perform filtrations to get further insights. In the columns, just create columns for you, and then you can now get the respective values for those columns. Your rows, obviously, is your rows, which just shows your data points, and then you have the values, which is obviously the values. And the values will mostly be summations, because when you are trying to get insights from your graph, it's going to either be summing it or performing a sort of calculation to get the volume of whatever you're trying to do, based off of maybe whatever data point, maybe the dates or whatever. So in your values, you have you could have the sum, you could have the count, you could have the average. So the average sales, you have max sale, minimum, you have the product, which is just obviously multiplication. You have the count numbers, and those various other calculations that could be performed. And then if you want to go further, you can now then go and get further calculations, such as you can get the percentage of the difference, ground total, percentage ground total, things like that. And I believe there's even more. There's even more of those calculations that could be performed. So your fractions, your percentage, and things like that. So that's just basically it. I think one thing with pivot table is you will have to work with it a lot, especially using it for different kinds of graphs and charts, to actually understand, how to use it and when to use it. So that's it. Yeah, so basically that's it on pivot tables. I believe we'll be doing more, on pivot tables to more examples to further understand, the power of pivot tables. But I think that will be when we're working with graphs. So we'll explore pivot tables more and actually see, how powerful they can be. Because when you actually visualize, what you're doing on pivot tables or using graphs, then you further understand, the reason why you should use it. Because sometimes large data sets like what we just saw now, it will get a little bit complicated because you might not really know what to do, what fields to place your data points on. Should it be in columns? Should it be in the filter? Should it be in rows or values? I remember when I first started using the pivot tables, it was quite confusing for me. I was just playing around with it because I did not know, how to place each, data point or each item, in which field that the pivot table has provided. But then one thing you should just do is you should understand what you're trying to achieve. So when you understand what you're trying to achieve, and if it's possible in pivot tables, and then you'll be able to achieve it. So yeah, so that's basically it. So next time we work on graphs, explore more. So until next time, stay that kind of story, and I will see you again. By God's grace.
Me I no send them enemies around me. Me I'm gonna gun them. My mind on my moolah, pay me my moolah. My mind on my moolah, moolah. My mind is made up.